Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Orleans County State's Attorney, Jen Barrett. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, before COVID, you were a frequent flyer. Have you had to lay quite low because of the pandemic, or are you working behind the scenes?
We're working behind the scenes at a faster rate than ever, but the court hasn't quite caught up yet.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what you want to talk about today, about what is going on. And hasn't there been a slowdown because of COVID?
Absolutely. So what I wanted to talk about today is talking to the community about the lack of resumption of jury trials. So we have not had a jury trial for a single defendant since March of 2020. And across the state, they're starting to do jury trials, but Orleans County hasn't started yet. And the judiciary has not been transparent or in communication about why that is.
Does that mean we just haven't had any crime?
Absolutely not. We have a really big backlog. We have about 1,700 active cases right now.
And I'm still wondering, in my 56 years, I have yet to be called to jury trial, and I've known other people to be called multiple times. Am I on a do not call list or what?
There's a photo of you that says, too kind, don't let him in.
Oh, no. I do have a tendency to find the good in everybody. So, but being a former newspaper reporter, I bet you I would be an awful pain.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. So why is the backlog?
So we have not started doing jury trials again since the pandemic. Initially, we were told that the Orleans County Courthouse was not safe to conduct jury trials. And I don't know if you've been over there, but the room is relatively small and the space is very congested. And even in healthy days, jurors had to cram in shoulder to shoulder into the hallway, down the stairs on jury draw day. And now there's just really not sufficient space to be doing jury trials.
You can't do those by Zoom?
So the state would be willing to do them, but individual people don't want to have jury trials via Zoom. And so we've been doing them. We've been doing some court trials, which is a trial just with a judge by Zoom, or by WebEx is what we call it, but not the full jury trials. And so we've been waiting to hear from the courts how and when we're going to restart. We don't, as the state's attorney's office, have a say in when we start jury trials again.
Right. Now, is it, once you start up, will it be in that courthouse or will it be somewhere else?
So that's a great question. That's one of the concerns that we've had, is sort of the lack of transparency by the courts. There has been some dialogue that we will be trying at least incarcerated or people who are in jail, their cases out of county. And that raises a lot of concerns for the people of Orleans County, my office, the people who've committed crimes, and the court staff.
Yeah, because your office is located in the courthouse, so if you need something, you can easily get it. Am I correct?
Right, and I would say that the hardship of my office is the least of the concerns about having trials out of county. So if we had a jury trial, let's say they were talking about Lamoille County or Caledonia County, so they're traveling either to Hyde Park or St. Johnsbury, the people who are in the criminal docket, a lot of them don't have licenses, don't have childcare, and the same with the victims, right? They don't have licenses, they don't have childcare, they have to take an entire day off from work and find a ride out of county to attend a court proceeding. Same with all of the witnesses, law enforcement have to leave the county in order to do the trials. It's just a huge hardship to expect people even just to travel out of county, let alone the other concerns about a different location.
And your jurors would also come from Orleans County versus, say, Caledonia County, where it's being held. Is that correct?
No. So that's one of the other concerns, is that they want to have Orleans County citizens tried in front of Caledonia or Lamoille County juries. And I'm sure everybody who's watching is aware, there's a big difference between people who live in Stowe and people who live in the kingdom.
Yes, there is. And now, so what constitutes a jury of your peers then?
So from my perspective and a number of the defense attorneys' perspective, a jury of your peers would mean someone from your county. Right. The actual language that the statute or law says is a jury of your country. And so that could be interpreted a number of different ways, and we haven't had necessarily a final ruling on the court on whether or not a Lamoille County jury would be sufficient for Orleans County citizens.
Have lawyers tried to get their clients off because of this delay?
Absolutely. They're filing motions for speedy trial. They're asking for cases to be dismissed because there hasn't been a trial. And it's something that's challenging because it's hard for me to dispute the delay. So if there's a delay in a trial, that delay is attributable or the fault of the state, even if we don't have control over the outcome. So for example, the court's delay at this point is all attributable or mostly attributable to the state, but we don't have a say. We haven't been told about when, how, and what we could do to safely resume jury trials. We're just sort of left in the dark, but then we have to take the accountability for the delay on behalf of the judiciary, a separate branch of government.
And then the victim, it must be hard on them because they probably want to get this behind them. So it's not only tough on the defendant, but it's tough on the victim if there is if it's a crime with a victim. Then I've heard talk, or I've seen it in the news, that Orleans County might be getting a new courthouse sometime, but that would be way down the road, I assume.
Yeah, and again, that's not something that we have been spoken to about or kept in the loop on. I did participate in a study that the judiciary conducted about what would be needed in a new courthouse, but we weren't provided any details about a location or a time frame, or even if we would be housed in the same building as the courthouse like we currently are.
Here's my bet on the new courthouse. If there's a new courthouse, and I'd be willing to put a wager down on it, but I suppose I can't because that would be illegal betting with the state's attorney. I suspect the new courthouse will go into the crater on Main Street. You'll have storefronts down below and the courthouse up above, and probably your offices will be maintained over in the old courthouses. That's only my theory, and I suspect if you do get a new courthouse, that's going to be largely the design, with the exception of maybe you will also be housed in that building. Let's see, 5 years down the road, see how right I am.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what they're going to do. We certainly could use an updated courthouse. There are a lot of concerns with the current courthouse, even in non-pandemic times, about security and updates. The internet that we have in that courthouse is equivalent to a single household in the kingdom for 3 agencies, which is really bizarre. And because of the historical nature of the building, getting updated internet has been a large challenge.
Now, your office is in the one on the left looking or the right? I can't recall.
So it's the one on the corner,
right, okay.
The criminal courthouse.
Right. The other one was the federal building, and it had like post office.
That's the one that we're in.
That one. Okay. Yep. And so when are you going to know about this whole jury trial?
So that's the thing, is we've been asking for answers since at least April.
Now, who do you ask for answers at? Not person, but what department?
The judiciary. So at this point, we communicate with the local clerks, but they don't seem to have the answers. So we've also been communicating with the chief judge. Right now, that's Brian Grierson. In the judiciary, Pat Gable would be the other person. And we have been asking them repeatedly for information about how we're going to reopen and when. And one of the concerns was if our building is not safe, where else could we go? And so back in April, I proposed a number of locations within the county that could house a jury trial with slight modifications. But the judiciary told me that they're not looking into alternative locations.
So I would assume they must have something up their sleeve and they're just not telling you yet.
I mean, that's one possibility. Last week, after several weeks of asking for it, we received an engineering report that was supposed to outline what the safety concerns were with the building here, but the article itself appeared to have no safety concerns, so it was a little puzzling.
Right. You know, when I've been in the the courthouses as a non-defendant, as a non-victim, as a non-juror, as a reporter usually, in my previous, I've been amazed though how structurally they've been very well upkept. It's more just it sounds like COVID has really brought some things to the forefront.
Yeah, I think that the buildings are beautiful and historical and the facilities have worked well, but they're small, right. And they're just not really designed to house the number of jurors that are needed for a complex trial.
Back in the old days, you kept the ones who had to be jailed right out back in the little lockup.
Yeah, I always thought that building would make a cool restaurant.
Oh, it would, and or even a unique B&B.
Yeah.
You can actually stay in a jail. But I kind of think like a lot of things that happen, like with the grandstand, some things happen in Newport that they're allowed, and it's not always the Newport government's fault, but like the grandstand was allowed to crumble before our eyes. The jail, I believe, the lockup, I believe, has probably crumbled beyond any repair, even though it would be a great restaurant or B&B, just to say you stayed in an old-fashioned lockup.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty neat. I don't know the structure of the building. I've asked for a tour over the years, but I haven't been able to have one yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With your power? No. Yeah, it's an old-fashioned, it's like something out of Gunsmoke. And it was used not too many years ago, and there's, over the years, there's been a couple humorous escapes. I think one was, I don't know if it was using a cribbage board or something, loosening up the bars. It's just, I've actually written about the lockup a number of times and some of the capers that took place there. So, from your standpoint, are you ready to get going?
We're absolutely ready to be doing jury trials. We want to be doing them. We're willing and able. I certainly don't want to have to choose between the safety of the community, my staff, the defendants, and go to a building that's not safe, but we're ready, willing, and able. What we'd really like is the court to disclose to us what's unsafe about the building, and if we cannot remedy that quickly, to look at alternative locations like the CVS building on the Derby Road, like other large, open, newer buildings that are vacant that could be easily converted into a courtroom.
So was that one of the buildings that you proposed?
It was one of the options that I had sent to the judiciary that I was hoping that they would explore about doing some trials there.
Good parking too.
Central location, good parking, wide open building. The modifications that would be needed would be relatively limited, and I assume they have a relatively new HVAC system because of the age of the building.
So how long has it been? COVID came, March of last year, February, March, and so you've been on hold pretty much since? It's
been about 20 months since our last jury trial, which is an incredible amount of time. So some cases are moving, right? Like some people are choosing to plead guilty, and some cases are being resolved otherwise. But without the real pressure of a imminent court date, a lot of these cases just linger. So I don't expect that all 1,700 people or 1,700 cases will go to a jury trial, but without the pressure of that imminent final decision, cases just sort of linger out there. We've made offers in the cases, but I think for some people, having those cases hanging out there, there's no harm to them, right? They're just hoping to wait and have it dismissed based on one of the defense attorney's motions, or they're hoping they'll get a better deal the longer they wait, or those types of things. And so the cases are just sort of lingering.
Is this a problem that plagues other courthouses in Vermont?
So I think that there had been a delay across the state, but what's different is that delay ended for the majority of the other counties back 6 months ago. And so other counties are having jury trials, and we just are not being given that option.
So the way things work often is the visible person gets the blame, and you're the visible person. Are you ever blamed for this inaccurate? Are you ever mistakenly blamed for being the cause because people don't know how the system works?
Absolutely, and I completely understand the frustration on behalf of victims and witnesses and law enforcement, but I have no say in the reopening of jury trials. I do not get a stake in it. All I can do is what I have been doing is speaking out and telling the community that I'm ready, willing, and able, and so is the defense bar. This is one of those scenarios where we almost never agree on anything, me and the defense attorneys, and here we are begging the judiciary and speaking to the public, asking for jury trials. So it's a very unique situation where we're on the same team wanting trials. While the defense wants a speedy trial, so do victims. And our cases are negatively impacted as the time goes on as well. People move, memories fade. You know, the quality of the case is very different several years later.
And I would imagine even sometimes you lose key people even to death if it goes on too long.
Absolutely. And I mean, not only did people pass away, but they move, they get different phone numbers, we can't track them down. It's a real challenge all along to pull all of those people back in and then expect them to remember in great detail events that happened years and years ago.
Right. So when is there going to be a solution? So
that's the thing, we don't know. The first step, finally, after months of begging for it, they set cases for what's called a pretrial. A pretrial is what's supposed to be the final hearing before a jury draw. But normally, those hearings are coupled with a date for a jury draw. Right. So we have this pretrial, but we don't have a jury draw. We don't know when it's going to be, where it's going to be, anything.
So that's how come I haven't gotten my notice yet for sitting on a jury.
Well, I mean, if the trials are out of county, we're not even going to have Orleans people participating.
Right. I don't know how the system works. Is there any way that you can go over their head, like to the governor's office, and tell them, say, hey, get these people moving?
So, no, because of the separate branches of government, right? So there's always been a separation of powers between the executive branch and the judiciary on purpose. And here it works against us, though, because there is no accountability. It's like screaming at the edge of a mountaintop, and nobody's listening and nobody's held accountable in terms of the responses. And that's just really what we're finding, is that the judiciary's response has been unacceptable, and more things are happening out of county. If you were to call over to the Orleans County Courthouse, the local number, the 334 number, they're going to route you to someone in Burlington at this point. And they're going to tell you there's no clerks available to talk to you in Orleans County. Like, that's the type of customer service we're receiving from the judiciary up here.
And they've given you no idea when they're going to decide what they're going to do, since it doesn't look like alternative venues are being considered.
Right. I mean, we're being told that we're going to start trying incarcerated defendants out of county. But when that is, we don't know. Where that is it Lamoille? Is it St. Johnsbury? We don't know.
So would this be a good time for me to consider a life of crime, since I've never had a speeding ticket even, would there more chance that I'd get out of it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Do you get many people who end up defendants who have gone all their lives like me without a speeding ticket, then all of a sudden show up in court?
Occasionally. I think that there is probably a portion of our caseload that are good people who make a mistake, and that happens, right? And then there's another portion of our docket that are people who are just
frequent flyers
or career criminals, and those are people that we also deal with regularly.
So yeah, you must see a lot of the same faces. So other than this, this major issue, how else has the pandemic affected you?
So from our office's operation, not a whole lot. We have been able to do depositions and court hearings by video. And so that has actually been really helpful to the people in the county, because instead of having to take a day off to travel to us to do depositions, the majority of them are being done on Teams or other video software. So that's worked really effectively. My staff has worked hybrid between in the office and at home. We're able to route the phones to cell phones and access all of our computer and cases on the computer at home. So we've been up and running and really running at full capacity other than this jury trial issue.
You know, I've often said I think the pandemic, with as much problems as it has brought, including death, I use the school system as an example. I think something's good will come out of it. I think it's taught us a lot, like with the education system. I don't think education will ever be totally the same again. And I mean that in a very positive way, because the way we've been teaching our kids is largely the same as it was 100 years ago, just with the added technology. Have you learned things during this pandemic that you will continue to use after the pandemic is done, and like technology or such?
Absolutely. So being able to do court trials from the computer from any location saves us a ton of time, because before, if we had 10 cases on in front of the judge in one day, we would have to sit in a courtroom all day and wait for the cases to be called and address just those cases. Now, if I can sit at my desk, I can respond to emails, I can multitask, I can write motions, I can take phone calls in between those breaks. And so my productivity is a lot higher when I'm able to access some of these things online. Now, I think there's a time and a place where in-person court is very important, but for the average status conference or first appearances, I think that those can be done with technology. Same with depositions or interviews of witnesses. Like I was saying, it's so much easier for, if it was you who needed to come give a statement about a case, to be able to do that from home, right, and not take an entire day off, travel to Newport, depending on where you're from, and have all of those hardships. So we're able to actually be more efficient in some of our tasks using the technology that we've come up with during the pandemic.
Right. So we only have about 5 more minutes left. What more would you like to say?
Just that we are available at all times for the community if they have any questions, to call my office. I think a lot of the community already does that. Just sort of reiterating to any victims that we too are advocating for swift jury trials, and also on behalf of the defendants, that the hardship is evenly weighed across all the parties, and we really think it's important that the people of Orleans County get to have justice in Orleans County.
Hopefully it happens soon, because, as I said, I've never been a victim of a crime. I've never been a defendant, but if I were, one way or the other, I'd want to get it over with.
Yeah.
And put it behind me. And I'm the type of person, I hate the unknown, so waiting 2-3 years, that would be a sentence in its own.
Yeah, it's an incredible wait.
But I can imagine for other people, it's, especially the frequent flyers, they might actually lose track of their multiple cases. So, all right. Well, if you don't have anything else, we will close, and you are welcome to come back on for an update if need be, and hopefully your courtroom's back up and running.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
I thank you. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.